See how it goes. Joe Fisher. All right, welcome. We have about a dozen bills to do today. We'll start with House Bill 624, Next Gen Scholars Bill. It's actually my bill. I think I have a panel. Andrea, Joe, you guys want to come on up? And just briefly, the bill shifts responsibility for oversight of Next Gen Scholars from MSDE to MHEC, who has greater capability and are used to dealing with these issues. Everyone, I believe, supports at MSDE and MHEC. I do have some experts here to sort of talk about the need for the bill. Andrea, welcome. And if Joe and anyone else could hear, they can.
Mr. Fisher is waiting in the security line right now. So he should be here any moment now, I believe. So I can just go ahead and we can go from there. But thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Andrea Mansfield, representing the Maryland Alliance for College Affordability and Equity. Actually really kind of excited to be here on this bill. I'm not sure if any of you were here when I should say years ago in another life, I worked at the Maryland Higher Education Commission. And in one of my roles there, I was the director for the Office of Financial Assistance. And we really focused hard at that time really on our need-based aid programs, ensuring opportunities, making sure students had the information to know not just about state aid, but other types of aid to help them go on to college. And that is what this bill is about. The Next Gen Scholars Program provides dollars to nonprofit organizations that work in the school systems with those schools that have 50% or more free and reduced lunch populations. That money is used by the nonprofits to work with students beginning in 7th grade and up to kind of help them, give them the skills, the knowledge, mentoring to make sure that they are college ready. And then it works in partnership with MHEC to make sure there's financial aid available there through the Guaranteed Access Grant program for those populations. So what we're trying to do with this bill, currently MSDE oversees the program working in collaboration with MHEC. And MHEC has a pretty substantial role in the financial aid and the outreach piece of this. So we're trying to get the program right. I guess I would, for speaking for Mr. Fisher, who's the head of the Maryland Alliance, and who's very passionate about this. We're really trying to get the program right and put a structure in place to really serve these kids and make sure they're not just know about the Guaranteed Access Grant, but all forms of financial aid, so they're able to package that aid together to go on to college and do great things going forward. So I was going to cover, we have been working with MSDE as well as MHEC, as well as members of the Alliance, and they will be here. Mr. Fisher will be here to add some comments. But what I can do briefly, we do have some.
Joe, come on up.
Oh, great. Thanks. Hello.
You want me to take the virtual witness, Mr. Fisher, while you catch your breath? Why don't we do that? Do we have a virtual witness? All right, we're going to pull up the virtual witness. That'll give you a minute to.
Yeah, but I'll just say, so we do have some amendments. We've been working closely with both agencies. The amendments are trying to really, get it right, spell out some responsibilities and the role for MHEC and MSDE as they collaborate in this program. But also we know there needs to be some resources, so we're also willing to work with them to try to get a position within the Higher Education Commission to successfully administer this program. So with that, I'll just say, we hope you have your support on the legislation, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we have a legend with us, Joe Fisher. Those of you who don't know Joe, went to door starting his organization. How many years ago now, Joe?
34.
And how many high schools are you in now in Prince George's?
We're in 8 high schools in Prince George's County.
It's great, and has mentored so many young people and getting them into college as first generations, including our Senator Alonzo Washington. So thanks for all your work. Well,
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chairman. And I just want to say good afternoon now to everyone, especially Ben and Chair Mark Chang and members of the committee. I'm very passionate about this work. But one thing I know from my community, passion doesn't get the respect it deserves. And I'm not only coming with you with passion, but I'm coming to you with the facts, with data to support the need on why this recommendation is being made and why, as chair of the Alliance, well, CEO and founder of First Generation College Bound, and now chair of the Maryland Alliance, which is statewide, I am here to provide testimony on behalf of them, as you've seen here in the testimony. I am testifying, we're testifying in support of 624, the Next Generation Scholars Program, to be administered by the Maryland Higher Education Commission, as Andrea said, with amendments. This is due to MHEC's knowledge and experience of need-based aid for low-income students, supporting them to attend an affordable college. This has set the pace or set the tone for us to not only an affordable college in Maryland, our primary, that's the primary source where our kids go, but also beyond, making it affordable so they will
Hey, do
graduate.
I look dumb?
The Maryland State Department of Education has done well at administering the program. However, it does not have the need-based knowledge and financial aid knowledge and experience in the area of financial aid to address the needs and concerns of the NGS program. As a result, since year one of the program, MSDE has reached out to MHEC for support. I find this understandable as MSDE's focus is on students being college ready and career ready. And as a retired teacher after 35 years in the Howard County Public School System, I understand. However, for those students who are eligible for need-based financial aid, completing the process with support from the NGS program is most valuable. The MHEC funds awarded will enable the students to attend a Maryland best fit and affordable college. Recognizing the importance of the Maryland Higher Education administering this grant, NGS programs recognize and appreciate with partnering with the schools they are providing service. As a result, MHEC must have a full-time person not only administering and managing NGS programs, but also collaborating with MSDE for success. During my years of promoting college affordability to low-income students, with the support of the Maryland Higher Education, there is no doubt in my mind there was no doubt they could attend an affordable college and graduate with little to no debt. Due to the financial resources of the Maryland Higher Education, there is no excuse for any low-income student in Maryland to attend college if they desire or are made aware of the NGS program getting the support. I sent you data. You will see my data, and in that data, it shows of all of our alumni that got a bachelor's degree, most are top 10 colleges are in the state of Maryland because it's affordable. And that's why I sent you that data that's included. As I close, the Maryland Alliance is in favor of HB 624 with amendments. I want to thank you for providing me the space and time to advocate for the low-income students and parents whom the Alliance represents in removing barriers for them to attend college and graduate with little to no debt. But I also want you to know that, as Westmore said, we don't want to leave anybody behind, especially our low-income kids. They deserve the support to get there just like everyone else. Thank you.
Deja?
Yes. Can you hear me? All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Deja Cobbs. I'm the Director of Program Services at First Generation College Bound. I'm here in support of House Bill 624 with amendments for the Next Generation Scholars Program to be administered by the Maryland Higher Education Commission. First Generation College Bound, as you've heard, is a nonprofit working in Prince George's County for now 34 years. First Generation College Bound, we provide the comprehensive support to students from low-income families to enroll and graduate from college. Our organization works with the students and their families to navigate the complicated process of preparing and applying for college. A critical part of that is the process for applying for financial aid. For the first time from the time we enroll a student, we are able to identify what state need-based scholarships or grants they will be eligible for of the financial aid process to low-income students. This includes the state grants, scholarships offered through the Maryland Higher Education Commission. In order for our students to complete the process to receive this funding, we have to work very closely with our families, students, and the Office of Financial Assistance of the Maryland Higher Education Commission. It takes time to build that trusting relationship with our students and families in order for them to complete the financial aid process, even while in college. Over the past 34 years, we have assisted 2,813 students. We have entered college, 1,103 who have graduated from college, and there are another 1,871 currently in college that we are supporting. In our high school graduating class of 2023, our students received $3.4 million in financial aid, $951,400 with state grants alone. Due to this recent legislation passed regarding the FAFSA completion, we provided FAFSA information sessions at all 8 of our high schools in Prince George's County. That was 1,111 seniors. We were able to gain understanding how to apply for your legislative scholarships, create an DCAPS account to be able to see that if they're eligible for state aid, and complete the MISFA application. First Generation wants to collaboratively work with the Maryland Higher Education Commission in providing the outreach support to all low-income students for them to not only attend college, but graduate. Thank you.
Thank you, Deja. Any questions for the panel? Delegate Grice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to clarify, this was an original appropriation back in FY23, I believe. There is no new money going into this program with this particular bill. It just transfers 5 million out of from MHEC. I'm sorry, from MSD into MHEC.
Correct.
Okay. So other than there being a sponsor problem, there's really
Remember that.
Thank you.
Yeah, sponsor problem indeed. Any other questions? Delegate Solomon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not so much a question. I just really wanted to say thank you. You all and the Alliance have been such amazing partners on so much of the work that we've done. I just wanted to thank you all for your incredible work over the last couple of years. Isn't that so?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the whole committee, thank you. Thanks for being with us. We have a virtual witness. We'll bring on
Yes.
Tara Ford, and Tara, when you get on, you have 2 minutes. And I should say, for all the witnesses today, every witness gets 2 minutes. Tara, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Tyra Ford. I'm currently a junior attending Bowie State University. I was introduced to First Generation College Bound program in high school, and since then they have guided me through the college process. They have showed me how to apply to schools, and more importantly, how to apply for financial aid. They showed me. Okay, sorry. My college experience has greatly benefited me from being a recipient of the GA grant. In terms of paying for school, it has helped me feel more at ease. One of the greatest benefits I have been given is that the knowledge that I have of financial aid, of being able to pay for my education, and individuals who will assist me while I'm in school. My FGCB supports have been extremely helpful to me. Over the past few weeks, I have encountered problems with my financial aid, but FGCB has supported me the entire time. They contacted me to ensure that my funds were in order, and we both shared updates throughout this process. They were making calls on my behalf to MHEC to ensure that my GA grants were dispersed and that there were no additional documents needed from my university. They provided me with all the information they could in response to my inquiries and advocate with my university to ensure that the issue was resolved. Ultimately, they followed up to make sure that I was okay and that nothing new has been discovered, and ensured that I received my grant without any further issues. Maryland State need-based grants provide financial assistance to those with low incomes and those who cannot afford tuition, allowing them to avoid paying out of pocket and having mountains of college loan debt. I would not be aware of this grant or that I could afford college if it weren't for First Generation College Bound. First Generation College Bound outreach provided me.
Tara, you just need to wrap up a little bit. Every witness gets 2 minutes, but just go ahead and conclude.
First Generation College Bound outreach provided me with needed advice, encouragement, and support to receive the Maryland Higher Education Guarantee SS grant. And because of this, I will be graduating the next spring.
Great. Congratulations and great testimony. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Tyra? Okay. Well, once again, congratulations on your success. We'll look forward to big things. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 624. We'll now move to 688. I do believe I have a panel. Katie Caljean, Kevin Cabrera, Ashante Daniels, to all come on up, and I'll just very briefly, committee, House Bill 688 adds non-mandated fund to the budget via the Museum Historic Trust to support the state's nearly 300 museums the Museum Assistance Program. HB 688 annually would allow necessary funds for history museums, which are currently ineligible for most Maryland Arts Council grant programs. The passage of this bill would allow for the Museum Assistance Program to address current lack of salaries for staff, fund grants, and disaster planning. So with that, I will leave it to our experts. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Katie Caljean, President and CEO of the Maryland Center for History and Culture. Thank you to Chair Barnes for sponsoring House Bill 688 to reenact the Historical and Cultural Museum Assistance Program for the state of Maryland. We're a statewide institution that stewards Maryland's largest historical collection with over 7 million archival documents and 350,000 objects, which animate over 12 galleries, educational programs, publications, research services that serve over 100,000 people in every county every year. And that's just one of the institutions that this bill would support. Under-resourced compared to peer history museums nationwide, government support only makes up 3% of our current operating budget, prompting much of our staff time to be spent raising dollars and cultivating donors to maintain operations rather than to innovate or to invest in our shared cultural heritage. These challenges are mirrored across our sector, with Maryland institutions financially struggling to retain staff and care for these collections. Regular and reliable support should come from MAP each year at MHT. The landscape has shifted since 2011 when MAP funding stopped, with many organizations seeking alternative funding sources. We ask that the committee make an amendment to the bill which excludes beneficiaries of Arts Council grants from applying. Equitable funding strategies for MAP recipients could be determined through a formula created by MHT that considers all sources of state funding. History museums fuel heritage tourism, local economies, and student learning experiences. Support is needed as we approach the 250 of the American Revolution in 2026. Neighboring states like New Jersey and Pennsylvania are already providing operating grants for history museums that outpace Maryland's investment. These states are doubling down on financial support for organizations to do good history. Reestablishing MAP will enable Maryland to be well-positioned to celebrate and share its important role in our national story and engage all Marylanders in inclusive and active history making. Thank you for your support of this program. You too.
Good afternoon. My name is Shantae Daniels. I am the Executive Director of the Baltimore National Heritage Area. Today, I am representing all of Maryland, not just Baltimore. And thank you, Chairman Barnes, for sponsoring House Bill 688. The Historical and Cultural Map Assistance Program funding is essential to maintain the prosperity of Maryland's history as we prepare for the 250th anniversary of Maryland's founding or the 400th anniversary of America. Maryland represents a huge part of how we became the greatest economy in the world. This funding will bring the resources required to maintain the places, collections, artifacts that tell who we are and how we became the great state of Maryland. We understand that this year, some difficult budget decisions will be on the floor for consideration. At the top of the list is education funding for our children. However, children learn differently. The MAP funding for museums who tell our history ensures that we will have the resources to educate children through museums and historic and cultural institutions. It ensures that we will have the resources to educate our children through our museums and historical and cultural institutions, not only in the classroom. History and social studies are no longer taught in the same manner as most of us were when we were in grade school. We have more than 400 museums and historic sites throughout Maryland, which are currently severely underfunded. Let's be clear. Funding museums may sound warm and fuzzy, but MAP has economic impact. It means jobs for a variety of disciplines, for professional researchers, curatorial practices, school educators, exhibit fabricators, construction, and planners. The Museum Assistant Program is a return on investment. Our children. That is long overdue since the program was defunded over 10 years ago. MAP funding is essential right now. We all speak of equity, Our larger institutions may have staff and development professionals to assist with obtaining funds. Many of our places represent African Americans and people of color in Maryland and the stories of the underrepresented communities. So many underrepresented museums are barely able to raise funds just on the sheer fact that they are small.
Thank you.
Oh, no,
You
I'm
just
not
have to
finished.
wrap, your 2 minutes is up, so one concluding sentence there.
The old Sankofa bird says, "Go back and fetch it." We must look back to the past so that we may understand how we become who we are and what we are, and move forward for a better future for everyone.
Well said. Thank you so much for your service to our state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Cabrera. I'm representing Prince George's County Parks and Rec and Maryland Museum of Associations. I want to thank you, Chair, and the committee for hearing us out and opportunity to advocate for Bill 688. Just want to share the powerful places that museums are. They are informal institutions of education. We provide support, experiences, interactives for children, for teachers, and for our community. It is these informal experiences that help shape our lives. I ask that as we moved towards 2026 and the 250th commemoration of the United States, on the founding of the United States, this bill will impact museums and the work that we do, curatorial practices, programs, and engaging experiences. But most importantly, as we move towards Maryland 400 in just less than a decade away, museums will be these spaces that will offer inclusive narratives of our past. As a son of immigrant parents, I never had the opportunity to go to museums until I was a senior in high school. It wasn't until I founded and had an experience with museums, it led me down a path to become a professional in this field. And so the work that we do also impacts our communities, especially minority communities, for people to see themselves in history, engage themselves in history, and be active participants in history. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we have an online witness as well. Nicholas Redding. Nicholas, are you with us? You have 2 minutes. Nicholas, welcome. 2 minutes.
It's wonderful to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before this committee. My name is Nicholas Redding. I'm the president and CEO of Preservation Maryland, the statewide nonprofit preservation organization. And we're emphatically in support of this legislation as an organization because we've long championed the state's investment in museums. And as far back as 2016, we work with this body to have the Maryland Historical Trust study, document, and report on the overwhelming need for this type of funding, which unfortunately has gone without support over the past decade. We've studied it, we've heard it from partners across the state, and when we visit museums and those collections that are held by museums, you can see it plainly. Maryland's history museums need our support. And has been as has been mentioned by other members of this panel, with the upcoming 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States approaching in 2026, now is the ideal time to increase the state's investment in this diverse and unique history. And it's a history that touches every district, every member of this committee, every member of the General Assembly has some type of museum or historic collection in their community that this would positively impact. And it's one of the first things that members always want to talk to us about is the important history in their backyard. And this is a way to invest in that story and to make sure that the institutions that exist are able to carry this work on. Without funding for this program in nearly a decade, this piece of legislation would be a very significant step forward, and we therefore request a favorable report.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Any questions for this witness? All right, well, Nicholas, thank you for all you do in supporting our kids and the history, great rich history of the state of Maryland, all our panelists. Thank you. And that concludes the bill hearing. Have a great day. We'll move now to House Bill 580, the Time to Serve Act. I believe our secretary is with us, and yes, welcome, sir. And I think Major Burkhead is with, yep, good to see you, General. And if you have anyone else you'd like to bring up, you're welcome to. Perfect. And just make sure, hey, June, make sure whoever's testifying here announces themselves so we can check them off our witness list. Mr. Secretary, welcome. How are you, sir? Great to see you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Barnes and members of the Appropriations Committee. I'm honored to stand before you today to support this piece of critical legislation our governor has proposed, the Time to Serve Act of 2024. This legislation is a vital step towards supporting Maryland state employees who serve in dual capacity as citizen soldiers and airmen of the Maryland National Guard. These service members I speak of are truly committed to serving our state, both in and out of uniform, and for more than just one weekend a month. The Maryland National Guard has proven time and time again to be the more than a part-time commitment for our service members. They volunteer to protect our state and nation when called upon for periods far exceeding 15 days. Even during a typical year without pandemics or civil unrest, our service members serve beyond 2 weeks of training and 1 weekend a month, or a total of 15 days. They also respond to severe weather emergencies, attend military schools to keep them ready and their careers progressing. Currently, these state employees must choose between sacrificing their personal leave or taking a leave of absence to continue to be paid. For example, during the recent COVID-19 response, thousands of service members volunteered to step away from their civilian jobs for extended periods to protect and serve our communities. Many of those service members were activated for nearly 2 years in service to our state. This act will significantly improve the quality of life for our state service members who often find themselves in a challenge to balance work and their military responsibilities. By increasing military leave for state employees from 15 to 30 days, this will enable our citizen soldiers and airmen to serve the state they love with limited cost. Moreover, the legislation will bolster the effectiveness of state government by enabling service members to volunteer for military schools and training opportunities, bringing back that knowledge and experience to their workplace. The Time to Serve Act of 2024 will also grant additional latitude to our hardworking state employees performing those arduous shift jobs, such as law enforcement, firefighters, emergency medical personnel, to name a few. Those employees will benefit immensely from the effects of this proposed legislation. This legislation will also impact our efforts to recruit and retain talent in the Maryland National Guard and in our state. Our service members won't have to choose between their state career or their military commitments when coming to utilizing leave, making them more retainable. In conclusion, I respectfully ask the committee to look favorably upon the Time to Serve Act of 2024, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, my name is Tony Woods, and I serve as Secretary of the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm honored to appear before you today and respectfully ask the committee for a favorable report on HB 580, also known as the Time to Serve Act. This legislation will support state employees that continue to serve in uniform and honor their families too. Maryland state employees are some of the most committed public servants that I have ever met. They work tirelessly to serve the people of Maryland, and in my department's case, to serve our nation's heroes as they write their next chapters here in our state. For all of our state employees, public service is a calling. For some, their commitment extends beyond their day-to-day role in state government. In FY23, 209 Maryland state employees used uniform services leave while they donned the uniform in our nation's military reserve and National Guard components. They're hardworking MDOT employees moving Maryland forward. They're state troopers protecting our communities, and yes, sometimes they're also cabinet secretaries too. I know firsthand the delicate balance of state service and military duties. While I currently serve as the MDVA secretary, I am also an Army reservist assigned to the Joint Staff at the Pentagon. I know the promise of 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year does not always hold true, particularly when hotspots flare up around the world or extreme weather events occur right here in our state.
Expanding uniform service leave from 15 to 30 days is an acknowledgement that service in the reserves and National Guard components sometimes extends beyond 2 weeks. It is our duty to provide these public servants with the time they need to fulfill their obligations to the nation, to our state, and to their families. And so it's for this reason that I respectfully ask the committee for a favorable report on the Time to Serve Act for Maryland's committed state employees and their families. Thank you.
Right, any questions for the administration? Seems like a pretty easy bill then. Thank you both for your service.
Thank
We
you.
also do, Mr. Chairman, we do have a second panel.
I'm
Okay,
gonna- Thank you.
thanks.
Good.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
John May, Desmond Nakaima, Denise Gilmore, and Alawadamil Alayan. If I messed that up, I apologize. Should be 4. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Corporal Nukamia Desmond. I'm a proud member of ASME Local 1678, and I have been a correctional officer for the past 3 years. I am happy to be here testifying for House Bill 580. Prior to being a correctional officer, I joined the U.S. Army Reserves. I am happy that I can serve both roles and perform my commitments. But the 15 days of military leave that we have currently has been challenging to manage. Currently, as a reservist, I do drills 1 weekend a month, which totals of 24 days annually. I also have 14 days of training that I must attain annually. That is 38 days a year of mandatory commitments. And it could be more if I'm called up for military duty. As a correctional officer, I am 24/7 employee. So right now, I used up 15 days of military leave pretty quickly. To cover the remaining days, I have to use annual leave and personal leave, which means I often end the year with no extra time to consider even a small vacation. Extending the military leave that employees get will be a huge help for people like me who want to serve our communities as state employees in our nation as a reservist. I urge you to provide a favorable report on House Bill 580. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman and the committee member. My name is Olaniyan Oluwadamilola, a Knight of John Wesley, a sergeant at JSOP Correctional Institution and the president of ASME Local 1678, leading our men and women in JSOP. And I'm also a leader of over 6,000 correctional employees and a proud member of ASME of over 45,000 members. I have been a correctional officer for over 13 years, and I have been a volunteer with the American Red Cross Central Maryland for the past 5 years. I was among the Red Cross volunteers that was deployed to California wildfires in 2018. I worked as a shelter assistant, and our responsibility was to provide shelter to the displaced and to other Red Cross volunteers. Even though that I spent over 11 days out of the 15 days disaster relief time provided by the law, my help was still needed. And at that point, I felt my mission was not fulfilled. Since I returned from the disaster relief operation in California, I have been passionate about increasing the days of the disaster relief and the military leave through our AFSCME during the last administration. The last administration never considered just increasing the days. Myself and my colleagues who volunteers to serve in the military are so grateful that our union and the state has agreed to do what is best and needed in order for us to serve our country respectively. I encourage all of you to support this change for the good of all, because when we have more days to attend to disasters, to attend to military leave, that is more days that we actually committing to the community, to the state, and to the nation. Thank you very much, and I encourage you all to support this bill.
Good afternoon, Denise Gilmore. I'm very proud Legislative Director of AFSCME Council 3, and I will just me too, and I'm here for any questions that folks may have. Thanks.
Chair Barnes, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of the governor's bill. I'm John May, a retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant and Vice President of the Maryland Military Coalition. The coalition is a nonprofit, all-volunteer veterans advocacy group of 21 veterans organizations representing over 150,000 uniformed services men and women, their families, and survivors. Increasing the number of days of annual military leave to 30 for all state employees who serve in a reserve component of the uniformed services ensures that these individuals do not have to use either their personal leave or leave without pay to participate in weekend drills or annual training. It allows them to use their valuable paid vacation time to be with their families. Notably, this legislation applies to the uniformed services that include members of the U.S. Public Health Service and NOAA, leaving no one behind. As the governor has declared, this is to be the year of the military family. We encourage the committee to consider adding enabling legislation that would authorize counties and municipalities to increase paid military leave to 30 days as well for their employees who also serve in a reserve component of the uniformed services. These employees are also members of Maryland's military family community. Adding this provision will eliminate the potential for disparity in a reserve unit where state employees who perform the same duties would have a greater opportunity for promotion and schooling than their fellow members who are employees at the county and local level. The Maryland Military Coalition strongly supports HB 580 and asks for a favorable report from the committee. And we would like to thank the Moore administration for requesting this legislation and appreciate its leadership on this issue.
All right, thank you all for your service. Thanks for your stories and being with us today. That concludes the go hearing. We'll now move to House Bill 545. Delegate Mira North, there you. Yes, welcome. Nice to see you.
Chair, can I bring my panel up?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Make sure they announce themselves so we can mark them off. Is
Yes.
this your first time in appropriations?
This is our first time appropriations.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so we got here. We have Melissa Bowman, Mary Claudel, and Robin Elliott. Okay. All right. Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and the distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. I am Delegate Bernice Merrick North, representing District 14, and I'm here before you on House Bill 545. And this bill is really addressing an oversight in the Jane Hoffman Loan Assistance Repayment Program. You see, according to the Maryland Higher Education Commission's website, nurses are eligible for the program, school nurses are not. There's an average of 0.75 nurses per school on a statewide basis. And from my understanding, that number translates to one nurse per 848 students. In Frederick, Montgomery, and Washington County, as well as Baltimore City, that number drastically worsens to one nurse per close to 1,500 students. Now, I'm very fond of my memories with school nurses. When I was in elementary school, I actually was knocked unconscious on my way getting to the bus, and it was a school nurse that aided me. I can't imagine there are schools that don't have the opportunity to have that same assistance. Now, with this bill, it's not necessarily an absolute aid to the shortage, but it will help. And since it's appropriations, I would note that there's no additional funding to be required. What this bill does is really just making sure that we are in par with the purpose of this program, which is to address professional shortages in state and local governments. So with that, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 545, and thank you for your time.
Oh my goodness, Delia.
Okay. It's like Ways and Means style. I get it. I'm ready for you.
I think it's a little hazing with your first time with them.
Okay.
So we'll hear from the panel, then we'll take questions together.
Right.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Melissa Bolin, and I am a BSN RN in Maryland and a nationally board certified school nurse. I urge support of this bill and to add school nurses to the professionals eligible for reimbursement through the Janet L. Hoffman Loan Assistance Program. Tuition reimbursement is a significant incentive that will attract qualified nurses to the field of school nursing, a field that tremendously struggles with recruitment, retention, substantially less pay, and critical staffing shortages. For the past 5 years, I have worked as a public school nurse in Montgomery County, where on the shoulders of me and my amazing coworkers falls the daily and often complicated health needs of over 160,000 students. As occurs throughout Maryland, I have witnessed since joining school health that there is a constant struggle to fill school nursing positions, excuse me, which directly lessens the availability of essential care to students. In my experience, healthy students are more available to learn and have less chronic absenteeism. The expertise of school nurses directly promotes students' health, enhancing their ability to attend school and be successful in their education. Who here remembers visiting their school nurse as a child? Funny enough, not me. Among my experiences, one that sticks out in my mind is while in middle school, I fell headfirst off the gymnastics rings in PE. I was told to cry it out in the locker room. Looking back on my experiences, I am glad we've progressed. Those see that school nurse staffing shortages continue to impact our children daily. This bill, if passed, will enable students and schools to have improved access to the essential care and comprehensive oversight of school nurses. In offsetting the financial burden of tuition for school nurses, nurses will be attracted to joining the ranks of school health, a field that so desperately needs them. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Mary Caudle. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm the manager of nursing operations for Baltimore City Public Schools. I've been involved in school health now in several different capacities over the last 12 years in 3 different jurisdictions. School nurses, we are not a career goal. We are a very distinct set of nursing professionals. Our goals are health promotion, health education, and access to care. In my jurisdiction, we have 156 schools and 60 nurses. Of those 60, a third of which are approximately are agency nurses who are transient and part-time. Every day of the week, our students are served by a nursing assistant who is able to do basic first aid, administer basic medications, and that's it. I try to get nurses every year, and the reason why I can't get them is because I'm asking them to come away from the bedside in the hospital and come to work in public health where they're going to take a pay cut. They're going to take a pay cut and they're going to lose the ability to choose their own schedule. Nurses in the hospital work 3 days a week or 3 nights a week, and they decide each week which ones they're going to work. They're going to come to work for me for less money, and I'm going to tell them 5 days a week, these are your hours, and it's not negotiable. Please, please consider including them in this relief program. It's just a little incentive to say, hey, give us another look, give us another thought. Any help would be so appreciated. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Robin Elliott. I'm here today on behalf of the Maryland Nurses Association. Also very pleased to be in front of appropriations with no fiscal note. Just wanted to add just a couple of things. As you heard from our sponsor, nurses in every other public health setting are eligible to participate in this program. For some reason that we don't understand, schools were excluded. I also just wanted to add that every other school health professional, so school counselors, school psychologists, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, all are also eligible for this loan repayment program. The only people who aren't eligible are represented by the 2 wonderful school nurses on the panel today. You heard their stories. It's a dire situation. We know this isn't going to solve all the problem, but it's an important step. And I also think it is an important way to let school nurses know how much our state values them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very much love this bill, not because of the supporter, but both of my older siblings are nurses in the state of Maryland, and they have significant debt. They're able to pay off now. Good jobs because it's not public sector, public health, which to your point, rightly pointed out, pays less, right? But can you share with me if you have that data now or later, just on average, what nurses graduate with in debt? We have a huge shortage. Just speaking for my own jurisdiction, our school system has a shortage of nurses. Our Department of Health has a shortage of nurses. And I think it's really important information for folks to remember, so if you have that information or if you can share that with us, appreciate that. And thank you all for what you do as the brother of two nurses. Thanks.
Thank you, Della, for that question. I don't know if we have that readily available, but we can certainly get the information unless Robin has anything to add to that.
It is a range. I'll get that to you. It depends on whether what point of nursing education you go to, but it certainly can vary. I've heard from 20,000 all the way up to 80, 100,000.
If you get it to the committee, we can disseminate it.
I'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Delegate McComas.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I would assume that the schools don't have enough social workers, enough psychologists, enough people that assist the kids or SROs. And so basically school nurses are basically a gateway that if the child's having problems, even if they cut their finger, you're going to interact with them. So I just wondered if you could kind of explain how they're very vital to those kind of things when you can't have everything,
Well, I shared my personal story. I mean, the nurse was my gateway. Honestly, I remember running to the bus and I tripped on his desk. And next thing you know, I was being escorted to nurses. I mean, they were the first line of assistance. So I'll let the experts add to that.
Honestly, when I came into school nursing, I was absolutely astonished at how much we are involved in with our students at school. I didn't quite realize the extensiveness of their health needs. And in my work daily, we deal with, we always hear about ice packs and Band-Aids, but it is so far beyond what I ever dreamed. I have students with, we have all our diabetics and we have kids who chronically have seizures, and we have students I have one who's at risk of becoming a quadriplegic. There's a lot of just constant case management that we're involved in. So on a daily basis, we're seeing students who, just need basic care. They came down with something or they're hurt. Sometimes they can be significant injuries, especially if there's been, a fight or an assault at school. We have to jump in there. We also just, with the case management perspective, we're writing IEPs, we're assisting in 504 plans, we're helping the education team promote the healthcare of that student so they can actually come to school. So it is very, very comprehensive and way more extensive than I ever dreamed. And I love it. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And now move to, I saw Delegate Henson. Why don't we take Delegate Harris? I think she just walked out. We'll get her back when she comes in. 678. All right, Delegate Henson, you're up. 539.
Thank you.
And
Mr.
Delegate, we passed this bill last year, didn't we?
We did.
All right.
You passed this bill 2 years in a row. In fact, it's in the same posture that it was last year and the year before that. The first year we worked out amendments with the university system. They are still on board this year. This year, we also have a cross-filer in the Senate who's very enthusiastic about hopefully getting them to do their very important part this year as well.
See, that's a former appropriations member testimony.
Thank you.
All right, any questions? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Have a good day. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, Delegate Harris, House Bill 678.
Great afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and my awesome teammates. House Bill 678 seeks to ensure that Maryland public higher education institutes are committed to diversity and inclusion by mandating institutions have a written policy encouraging targeted recruitment and outreach efforts to unrepresentative groups. By defining communities of interest, this bill ensures increased enrollment at institutions with historic unrepresentations of these communities in their enrollment, encompassing all groups, demographics, and all geographical areas. Targeted recruitment and outreach efforts are defined as activities such as college fairs, partnerships with community-based organizations, student ambassador programs, college access workshops, and/or dedicated support services for students when crafting and submitting college applications. With these efforts and the mandated reports to the Governor, President of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House, Maryland Higher Education Institutes will create opportunities for unrepresented communities of interest to access and thrive in higher education. According to the Institute data dashboard for the University System of Maryland, 3,100 students attended the University of Maryland College Park from Prince George's County. Overall, nearly 15% of Marylanders live in Prince George's County, yet less than 10% of these students are represented by University of Maryland Flagship Institute of the University System of Maryland. With targeted recruitment and outreach efforts mandated by the state, Marylanders can expect their universities to resemble the state in which they live. The University System of Maryland and Townsend University have begun to make a difference in enrollment and retention of unrepresentative groups. Townsend program called Townsend for Baltimore has seen a 100% retention rate for students participating in the program. Morgan State University owns recruitment and outreach efforts have created a diverse student body. Their effort have been successful in creating a campus environment where greater than 50% of their students are Pell Grant eligible or first generation. Similar programs and initiatives have been successful in recruiting first generation students to Maryland's largest provider of post-secondary education. The University of Maryland Global Campus, due to their outreach program at UMGC, 66% of their students are first generation. 18% speak English as a second language. UMGC is also highly diversified in the types of students who are continuing education after working a full-time career. According to the most recent stats, 78% of students work 40 or more hours per week. In addition, greater than a third of UMGC students' body is made up of students with dependent children. UMGC is also the #1 college for conferring cybersecurity degrees to women. UMGC is an excellent example of Maryland Institute that has a successful and achieved a diverse student body while continuing to offer a high-quality degree program. With House Bill 678, Mariners can expect a similar commitment to diversity and inclusion in all state higher education institutes. To this end, institutions with diverse faculty, staff, students, not only enrich an individual college experience, but also serve our communities by preparing their students to become culturally competent and empowered leaders. Maryland has the opportunity to be a leader in the nation, guaranteeing that all its students have access to high quality college education. To ensure our students are the best prepared to address and thrive in diverse communities, workforce, and global economy, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 678.
Delegate Smith. We also are going to be joined for this bill, it may now be or will be, by delegates Chisholm Lopez and Austin from HGO. And delegate, if you have a panel, you're welcome to bring them up.
Different 367 is community colleges. Are you on that one? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and to my distinguished colleagues on appropriations. For the record, I'm Delegate Stephanie Smith, and I'm here to present to you House Bill 367. Now, last year, I came before you and got your support as well as the full legislature to pass then House Bill 477, which allowed us to provide for four-year schools an opportunity to create reproductive health plans and require 24-hour access to over-the-counter contraception. That only included four-year schools. House Bill 367, which is before you today, expands this opportunity to our community college system. As we know, community colleges serve different students than many of our four-year schools. They tend to be slightly older, often are parents already, and also are maintaining other jobs and other obligations. And as such, their completion rate is approximately 43%, as you can understand, lower than many of our four-year institutions. So we want to, in the spirit of equity and parity, to ensure that those students, as they matriculate, also have accessibility to over-the-counter contraception. There's an amendment that I'm submitting during this presentation to tweak it a bit. While we require 24-hour access for four-year schools because they have on-campus medical homes and residents, community colleges do not have those same features. As such, we are just requesting that the over-the-counter medication be available at the times that the campus is accessible. And there are myriad ways that can be provided, like vending machines or some other form of transmission. But that's the only difference between essentially this bill and the four-year bill from last year, that you all supported wholeheartedly. I am hoping that I can receive a favorable report for House Bill 367, and I appreciate your attention to this issue. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Robin Elliott. I am here on behalf of the Women's Law Center of Maryland, as well as the American College of Nurse Midwives, very much in support of this bill. I am involved in the supporting the implementation of the bill that you all passed last year that requires a component of what this bill does, and that is access to over-the-counter contraception. All is going well. There is actually the Department of Health is working with a nonprofit to provide technical assistance to the four-year schools and has extended that offer to the community colleges. And we've heard definitely some interest. I also wanted to note, I think there's a virtual witness that you'll be hearing from shortly. There are three types of over-the-counter contraception. Very exciting is this past July, the FDA approved the first ever over-the-counter birth control pill. It's the daily birth control pill. It's called Opal, and it will be on our shelves in the next month or two. And so this bill would be inclusive of that. And with that, I would ask for a favorable report.
Great. Any questions for the sponsor and the panel? Okay, thanks for being with us. We do have a virtual witness, but before we get to the virtual witness, Jordan Jekyll, welcome. You're on.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Jordan Jekyll, and I'm a law student representing the Public Health Law Clinic. We urge a favorable report of HB 367 for three reasons. The bill would increase access to contraceptive health care, provide health benefits, and ensure that the 97,000 community college students in Maryland receive the same access of care as public senior higher education institution students. HB 367 would require that community college campuses provide access to over-the-counter contraception as approved by FDA. Recently, as we heard, FDA has approved a new form of contraception over the counter, which is an oral contraceptive birth control. This means that HB 367 would allow students without a prescription to receive or purchase contraception on campus, including oral contraceptives, rather than having to go to the doctor, get a prescription, go to the pharmacy, and get that prescription filled. HB 367 is a public health measure as it directly increases access to healthcare. The bill would provide numerous access points for those of reproductive age where already located, community college campuses, and improve health outcomes by decreasing the number of unintended pregnancies and providing health benefits to those who are going to need the medication for other health issues. Finally, the bill would ensure that community college campuses get the same level of access as those at public senior higher education institutions. As of August 1st, 2024, those institutions at public senior higher institutions will be required to provide 24-hour access to over-the-counter contraception. If this bill is enacted, the same will be true at community colleges. Additionally, community college students are more likely to be racially diverse and have to work a job part-time while attending classes, so they've likely faced historical barriers to access and have to juggle work and school, so they'll benefit more from easier access points. Because this bill will increase access to healthcare, provide health benefits, and ensure that Maryland community college students receive the same access, we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a virtual witness, Jakaya Johnson. Oh, I'm sorry. Victoria Nichols, I apologize. Can I hear from Jakaya? Applause, please. All right, we can go to our virtual witness, Victoria Nichols. Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Nichols. I'm the project director for Free the Pill, a project of IVA's reproductive health that supports a coalition of more than 200 reproductive health, rights, and justice organizations, researchers and advocacy groups, youth activists, healthcare providers, prominent medical and health professional associations, and others who share a commitment to ensuring more equitable access to safe, effective, and affordable birth control to people of all ages, backgrounds, and identities in the United States. The coalition members support over-the-counter birth control pills that are affordable, fully covered by insurance, and available to people of all ages. I appreciate the opportunity to provide information on House Bill 367 today, community colleges contraceptive access requirements. The bill would require community college campuses in Maryland to provide access to OTC contraception during school hours. I would like to provide background on a new type of OTC birth control. On July 13th, 2023, the Food and Drug Administration approved Opill, a progestin-only birth control pill, or a POP, for over-the-counter use. After a comprehensive review of the data and a unanimous advisory committee vote to recommend Opill for over-the-counter status, the FDA followed the science and made a decision that will help expand contraceptive access for those who face the greatest barriers to care. Decades of data show that progestin-only pills are safe, effective, and appropriate for use by people of all ages. The United States will now join over 100 countries with birth control pills that are available without a prescription. And Opill will soon be available in most major pharmacies across the country and will be the most effective birth control method available over the counter. It will be on shelves just like any other OTC medication and also sold online. Like other birth control pills, Opill must be taken daily. HB 367 would include access to Opill and which is one of 3 kinds of OTC contraception.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony and being with us today.
Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you so much. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 367, House Bill 625, Delegate Forbes, and I think Ann Galthrop is with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of Appropriations. I'm Delegate Kathy Forbes, and I'm here with testimony in support of HB 625. This bill has to do with the personal statement of benefits for pension holders. This bill will end the requirement to provide an annual personal statement of benefits for active members and transition all participants to the existing online member portal, MySRPS. The MySRPS online access will give members access to the most timely and accurate information about their vested benefits or the benefits that the member will be entitled to once they're vested, the date when the member was or will be vested, and the present value of any annuity the member has earned. For the last 3 years, the personal statement of benefits has been delivered through the portal. And this law will just bring this change will just bring us into the 21st century. The State Retirement Agency has a process to transition all members to make sure they can get the information and get online to the portal. And if people don't have access to a phone or internet access, they have a plan to provide the information to them via telephone or mail them the information. And I ask for a favorable report. Again, I'm Delegate Kathy Forbes, and I'm happy to give you testimony in support of HB 629. This is a technical change that amends the definition of the Consumer Price Index to reference the 1982 to 84 index instead of the 1967 index. As I said, it's a technical change that'll have no financial impact and will provide consistency with other provisions of the Maryland Code that reference the CPI. And I ask for a favorable report.
Seeing that concludes the bill hearing, House Bill 630.
6:30. I think I can make this even shorter. Delegate Kathy Forbes with testimony in support of HB 630. These are technical changes that correct an incorrect reference to the law enforcement officer's pension system member contribution rate and a provision regarding transfer of a service that is impractical to administer. And I ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Questions? That concludes the bill hearing. Thanks. Great to see you, Ann. Move to House Bill 569, Delegate Solomon. That must have been land speed record. I would like to call up Owen Andrew. You know what? They may be outside. I'm gonna text them to come in. Do you mind if I start with can I start with House Bill 341 instead? All right, well, thank you, colleagues, and sorry for the little bit of a fire drill here. I didn't expect those three bills to go so quickly. So I'm here right now as we wait on our panel for the other bill to present House Bill 609, which is the Library Workers Empowerment Act. And this is a bill that this committee has considered and heard a number of times before. We passed it last year, 18-5 out of the committee and 101-35 out of the full House. So it is just me, sponsor only. Essentially what this bill would do is give library workers across the state the opportunity to collectively bargain. It's policy that's on the books in Baltimore County, Prince George's, and Montgomery. I think as many of you know, we have sort of handled this piecemeal, county by county up to this point. And essentially what this bill would do is create a clean, consistent process for library workers across the state to, again, if they choose, join a union and collectively bargain. There's nothing in here that would mandate it. It would just be enabling statute for counties across the state. The bill, I think most importantly, eliminates the need for a patchwork approach. We want to streamline things. We don't want to have to go county by county. And we also want to make sure that, again, there is sort of a uniform approach that is conformed to the Public Employee Relations Act, which is now law that we passed last session
as a General Assembly and out of this committee as well. There are a couple of minor changes to the bill this year from last year's version. They're largely clarifying, to be honest, make sure that we don't decertify any of the existing unions that are already in practice. We wanted to make sure we didn't mess anything that had already been worked out. We specify that there's a creation of 2 bargaining units. And then, as I mentioned, it aligns the bill and the procedures in the bill with the Public Employees Relations Act. The other thing I'll point out is just there has traditionally been opposition from MACO this year. They are actually totally neutral on the bill. So we really appreciate that. And there are a couple of minor amendments that will work out in subcommittee. We've been talking with the library administrators, and I want to recognize a couple of colleagues who've been really helpful, particularly Delegate Jones with her county, and just appreciate the full committee's consideration of this again.
For the bill sponsor, Delegate Grice.
A little while ago. I think one of the changes as well to this bill is obviously we have the union on one side of the negotiation. So is it going to be the library boards, or is it going to be the local governing body who actually funds the libraries?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Delegate Grice. So actually one of the amendments that's been proposed to us by the library administrators is just to clarify that essentially this is a negotiation between the funding body, which would be the local county governments in most cases, and not the governing body, which would be the Board of Trustees of the library.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to tip my hat to the bill sponsor and the coalition. I know it's been hard work from folks all across the state to just extend the opportunity for folks to collectively bargain like anyone else has, and it's been a yeoman's job. So thank you for your hard work.
Well, Delegate Lewis, as the former personnel chair, thank you for all of your work. And I also want to recognize Delegate Johnson, who is a member of the Machinists and had this bill last year and has also done tremendous work with us on this too. We'll get Delegate Corman back here too.
Yeah, all right. All right, that concludes the bill hearing on 5609. We're going to go back to 569, Delegate Solomon.
Thank you. I'd like to call up our panel here. So if they're with me, I'd like to call up Owen Andrews, Mary Cruz, and Drew Fagan.
And Sarah
Barnard. Thank you.
Oh,
We might need one more chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, good afternoon, colleagues. For the record, Delegate Jared Solomon, and appreciate the opportunity to present House Bill 569, which will award credit for English language courses that are academic. So English language learner academic courses will award credits for those that are taken at community colleges. The CALL Act, or the Credit for All Language Learning Act, is at its fundamental core equal credit for equal work. So for those of us who are native English speakers, if we were to take a Spanish class or intro to French or intro to Italian, we would all get credit. And for most of us, those probably be considered intro level classes. But if you are an English language learner, you're an immigrant to our state, and you are taking academic English language learner courses. So not remedial, but you are taking academic courses, for things like how do you write at a high level, or, a whole host of other things. Currently, as set out in our system, you actually don't get credit for that. So that's a tremendous inequality. It costs a tremendous amount of money. You as a student could potentially be spending almost an entire semester's worth of your Pell Grant credit or your state grant or aid for up to 12 or even 15 credits that ultimately don't count towards your degree. And so again, this is about making sure that not only do those credits count at a community college level towards an associate's degree, but that those credits then transfer to any institution in the state, whether it's USM, state affiliated, or a private state supported institution in the state as well. We want to make sure again that this is all about fairness and making sure that students are getting credit for the work that they're doing. There's a lot of positives to this beyond obviously the equity argument that I've already touched on. our community colleges are going to see a likelihood of increased enrollment and increased retention. We know that for every course and every semester that a student takes that doesn't count ultimately towards their degree, their likelihood of persisting or graduating or being successful in their course of study drops dramatically. And I will say, you know, obviously our committee has done a lot of work. We passed the legacy admissions bill earlier. We've done a lot of work to think about how we, in the absence of affirmative action in the Supreme Court's ruling, how we make sure that our system is still equitable. And to me and to our coalition of amazing ESOL professors from across the state, this is part of that, right? It's about, again, making sure that every student is getting credit for the work that they're doing for their high-level classes. The other piece I'm going to mention is there is no fiscal note to this bill, and actually this will probably wind up saving money because again, our students are using their state grants and their aid dollars and their Pell dollars for courses that will ultimately help them graduate as opposed to courses that won't. Plus, this is probably going to be, you know, again, it's sort of hard to quantify this, but a benefit to Maryland's economy when we think about the need for multilingual nurses, for multilingual doctors, for multilingual teachers. You know, we're a very different state today than we were 2 or 3 decades ago. And the more that we can be welcoming to non-native English speakers to persist in our institutions, succeed and graduate from our institutions, and then be a welcoming state to have them be part of our economy and our community, the better it is for all of us. The last piece that I will mention before turning it over to the panel is we have been in really wonderful conversations with the USM. I want to applaud them. I know they're going to come up later. We will have a couple of clarifying amendments to submit. So the way the bill is drafted right now, it has the word elective in there with humanities. Without boring you to death, there's some COMAR provisions around general education and whether foreign languages count towards humanities credits. And so what we're doing with this bill is sort of creating the presumption that these courses, which don't necessarily have parallels at four-year institutions, count as humanities, but still giving the universities and individual institutions the opportunity and the ability, as written in COMAR, to set their general education requirements and create an opt-out or a specific unique provision for degrees if there are degree requirements. So we want to be very respectful of institutional autonomy while also acknowledging that these courses are different. And this builds off of the transfer work that this committee has done over the last couple of years as well with MHEC, who I know is supportive of the bill. So with that, I would urge a favorable report, and I will turn it over to our panel.
Thank you so much. The CALL Act originated from the most directly affected and marginalized people in the context it pertains to.
Just give us your name so we know who you are before ever you testify.
Thanks. Owen Silverman Andrews. It is the result of a grassroots consensus-based decision-making process that involves some key actors in all relevant sectors. It is clear, concise, precise, and well-bounded. It costs the state nothing, but would mean so very much to the students within its scope. Next week, the world will celebrate International Mother Language Day, a UNESCO designated date recognizing people's right to their own language. Indeed, language justice and multilingualism are policy arenas in which Maryland can and must advance. On February 21st, we will be reminded whether you speak with an accent, and we all have one, are a person who stutters, are deaf, or speak one or more languages other than or including English at home and in your community, your voice matters. By passing the CALL Act, the General Assembly sends a clear message that college and the high-paying, tax revenue-generating jobs and innovations college leads to are for our immigrant multilingual English learners too. By passing the CALL Act, the GA sends a clear message. We hear you, we see you, we value you, and we will do all in our power so you can be successful here. But most of all, the Credit for All Language Learning Act is about equal credit for equal work. It is a promise to students that the value of your hard work learning a new language is to your credit and will be credited to you. Multilingual people are valuable to Maryland schools, community colleges, and universities, and our economy. The strength of their multilingualism is apparent to all who know them. By passing the CALL Act, the General Assembly ensures that accrued value will transfer with them as they advance from dual-enrolled high school students, central to the success of the blueprint, to our community colleges, central to the upskilling of labor our state's economy so dearly needs, to our private and public universities, Maryland's engines of research and pathway to the professional class. The CALL Act sets right a longstanding wrong. It won't cost a dime and will likely save taxpayers on federal and state college aid while accelerating multilingual students into the workforce.
Thank you.
Please make the right call for our students and pass this bill.
Thank you.
Dear Chairman and members of the Appropriation Committee, for the records, my name is Maricruz Abarca, and I am here today to testify in favor of the COLE Act, HB 569. Having relocated to Maryland from New Jersey in December of 2013, I was initially captivated by the promise that this state was offering for me, my ex-husband at that time, and my soon-to-be twins, and my son, who was at that time 10. So, however, I soon realized that unlocking those opportunities was required mastering the language. So in 2016, facing all the challenges of going through my divorce and the linguistic barriers, I decided to retake my educational life. While juggling the responsibility of taking care of my twins, who were at that time 2 years old, my son, who was 10, diagnosed with ADHD. So for many of you, it was easier, but for me, trying to get my associate's degree, trying to pay for my children's food and my housing without any other opportunity, because when you don't dominate the language, you are facing everything on top of those. So at this point, all that I want to say is that those who know me, you know all that I have been through to succeed in life. Currently, I hold a master's degree. And all that I can say is that this could have saved me from spending nights in the darkness without BG&E, electricity. Because why? Because I wanted to succeed. I wanted a better life for my children. So in conclusion, I ask you to please support this opportunity and make Maryland a better place for all. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Drew Fagan, and I'm a faculty member at the University of Maryland, College Park, where I direct the Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, otherwise known as TESOL program. I've spent the past decade working very closely with various entities in various capacities around our state as it connects to English learners, including most recently as the Chief English Learner Advocate for the Maryland State Department of Education's Blueprint for Maryland's Future Work Group for English Learners in Public Schools, and as the 2022-23 Maryland TESOL Association President. Having had the benefit of being able to work within and across various stakeholders in all jurisdictions in this state, I can say one thing for sure. Maryland strives to ensure that all of its residents, regardless of cultural and linguistic background, have equitable opportunities for education that will not only help them succeed personally, but also help equip them with the tools they need to give back to our state. This act is a piece of legislation that values the intensive work these students put not only into their language learning, but also their disciplinary learning, given that many of the courses that this act is trying to make credit-bearing do more than just focus on grammar and vocabulary. They make direct connections between language and the disciplines. And this is highly valuable towards future degrees as well as future professions in Maryland. Second language acquisition research since the 1970s has consistently shown that the more students are valued and respected for who they are and what they bring to the classroom, the more motivated they are to learn and continue their education. Valuing and respecting our students' academic work will lead to faster and increased graduation rates, thus leading to faster and increased number of residents who are ready and willing to give back to the state that believed in and valued them for who they are.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Sarah Barnhart. I'm a professor of English as a second language at the Community College of Baltimore County, where I have taught since 1998. The call bill, HB 0569, is important to me as an English language learning faculty member because it will address an inequitable situation, namely that some language learners receive credit while others don't. My background is in linguistics, Russian linguistics specifically, and I understand the amount of work, expertise, and effort it takes to learn a language to the level where you can use it professionally at a college and in a career. The level of language acquisition goes way beyond what we study as world languages and approaches graduate level coursework. For this reason, English language learners deserve to receive world language and humanity credits for learning English, because furthermore, these learners are not just learning a language. To be fluent at this level, one needs to study the language in context. The context here at a community college includes studying literature, history, culture, and sociology, among many other topics. At most community colleges, we use authentic materials that reflect the academic topics learners will encounter in their college studies. These are not basic language courses, and students are working with college-level materials and ESL classes. These amazing, talented learners should receive credit for their studies and work, and the call bill will remedy that. And thank you so much for hearing my testimony today.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you. I do think we have another in-person witness before we have two virtual witnesses. Lauren Lamb. Lauren Lamb with us. Okay, I think she's coming on up. So you all can make room there and welcome.
Hello, thank you, members of the committee. My name is Lauren Lamb. I am a former high school ESOL teacher, and I'm here today on behalf of the Maryland State Education Association, which represents 75,000 public school educator members across the state. Emergent multilingual students are the fastest growing student population in the state in K through 12. And as in K through 12, students at the community college level may take ESOL or English language learning courses to hone their language skills and work towards professional fluency. ESOL courses are challenging and wide-ranging courses that go beyond vocabulary and grammar. Students read literature, write essays, analyze tone and context, and gain a deeper understanding of intercultural communication. Students in ESOL courses are honing one of the most in-demand skills that our state workforce needs right now, yet they're often not receiving credit. This is plainly inequitable, as their peers can receive credit for world language courses, academic writing courses, and other communication courses. I urge you to fix this inequity and issue a favorable report on House Bill 569. Thank you.
Delegate Solomon. Oh, we have two virtual witnesses. I'm so sorry. Felipe Filomeno and Christine Mallinson. Joel, if you want to bring them up.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting, I'll just mention there's letters of support from the Maryland Association of Community Colleges in your packet, and there's a sign-on letter signed on by 300 folks from around the state who are involved in higher ed.
Thank you. Felipe, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, dear members of the General Assembly and fellow citizens. My name is Felipe Filomeno. I am a citizen living in Towson, and I work as an associate professor of political science and global studies at UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I'm also president of the Latino Racial Justice Circle, a local nonprofit organization, and serve on the Governor's Commission on Hispanic Affairs. I'm speaking as an individual citizen, but my stance on this legislation is informed by my work as an educator and my service to immigrant communities. I strongly support the CALL Act, HB 569, because every semester I have several students in my classrooms who are first or second generation immigrants. If they are fluent in a language other than English because of that background, they still have to take foreign language credits or demonstrate proficiency by testing out. If our colleges recognized ESOL credits as foreign language credits, we would save those students time and money. We would facilitate their graduation and entering the high-skilled workforce. We would also save colleges resources because they would not have to test out students or provide foreign language instruction to students who have already learned English as a foreign language. It is time we recognize the cultural wealth that immigrant youth brings to our higher education and the workforce to the benefit of Maryland as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us today. Have a great day. You want to bring up the second virtual witness? Steen, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Christine Mallinson. I am a professor of language literacy and culture at UMBC, an expert in educational linguistics, and a fellow of the Linguistic Society of America. I'm also the granddaughter of immigrants to this country and a resident of Baltimore City for almost 20 years now. I'm providing testimony today as an individual, but my views are directly informed by my professional expertise and experience, and I want to voice my enthusiastic support of the CALL Act as an important step toward linguistic and educational equity and inclusion. Students who have learned English as their second or additional language bring an expanded set of linguistic skills and cultural competencies to their classes, to their workplaces, and to their communities. These skills and competencies in intercultural communication are precisely what we expect students whose home language is English to develop when they take world language courses or when they participate in cultural exchange programs such as study abroad. This is also exactly the reason why English language learning courses should be included and counted as humanities courses. All language learning consists of the study of language, literature, identity, history, culture, society, and humanity. In my expert opinion, therefore, there's no defensible reason why English language learning courses, which take place in our local cultural context, should be excluded from being awarded humanities credit. Doing so will recognize these students' expanded linguistic and cultural skill sets as being just as worthy, valuable, and integral to their academic and social development as students whose home language is English and who are acquiring another language. It would also facilitate these students' progress toward obtaining their degrees rather than disproportionately and unnecessarily slowing them down, costing additional time, effort, and money.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Being with us today. Any questions for the witness? Okay, thanks so much for being with us. Have a great day. That does conclude the bill hearing, and now we'll move to House Bill 341. Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you're all sick of me. I'm just gonna bring up my panel. So I could have President Dennison, President Delia, and President Carroll.
Lose the, okay.
Thank you, colleagues. So again, for the record, Delegate Jared Solomon, and I am here to present House Bill 341, which is legislation that proposes to allocate the cost of living adjustment funding for all non-state supported employees within the University System of Maryland. So, you know, for folks who have been paying attention to this, and especially my former colleagues on the EED subcommittee, it's an issue that we hear pretty regularly where there are a number of employees. So the state obviously negotiates and announces salary and wage increases for all state employees, but not all state employees are actually paid for out of state funds. So there are a number of employees within the university system that are state supported, they're state employees, but they are non-state supported. This includes folks in the dining halls, the housing units, and other functions within the system. So what that means is essentially the state negotiates salary and wage changes, and then it's up to individual universities to have to figure out how to pay for them. And what usually winds up happening, obviously, are fee increases or other ways to sort of pass the cost along to folks at the university and our students. And so this bill obviously has a really large fiscal note, but part of the reason we put the bill in was to figure out kind of once and for all what the cost potentially would be, what the cost might be borne by each individual institution, and to begin to have a dialogue again on something that our committee has grappled with for a long time and we know has been a tough fiscal issue for a lot of our universities and institutions within USM. So again, the fiscal note is really large. We do not necessarily anticipate passing this bill exactly as written, but starting the conversation, trying to figure out, how we can chip away at this to make sure that there's equity, frankly, for all of our state institutions and equity for our state employees, that they're getting what is due to them, but also that those costs are not being passed along to institutions that don't necessarily have a role to play in that. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to the folks from our various institutions who are here today.
Thank you. My name is Bill Dennison. I'm interim president of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, also known as UMSES. Chair Barnes and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to provide testimony in support of HB 341 on behalf of UMSES. So we're a research institution and we conduct the vast majority of our research through highly competitive grants and contracts that come from federal, state, local, nonprofit, and private sponsors. Our UMSE's total population includes 45% of individuals that are non-state supported positions and another 28% who are partially state supported. That's almost 3/4 of our population are not fully state supported. And the cost of living increases that are important for staff retention and particularly for our talented research staff are so important that we really highly support COLA increases. So much so that when we get a COLA increase, we treat all of our employees equally regarding COLA and regardless of the level of state support. And that puts a big burden on our grants and contracts that typically span 2 or more fiscal years. And it's difficult to calculate and manage those grants accordingly. And often we have to let staff are on our payroll for a short amount of time to accommodate that. So I'd like to thank the sponsor, Delegate Solomon, for putting in a bill that helps protect the wages and jobs for our non-state supported employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Solomon. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. Thank you to the committee. My name is Warren Kelly. I'm the Senior Associate Vice President for Student Affairs at the University of Maryland at College Park. It's been my privilege to have served my university for 40 years, and there are a number of dedicated faculty and staff who have made this work their commitment as well. For us, most of our non-state supported employees are in the Division of Student Affairs, and therefore I'm here to support House Bill 341. First, I want to share how much the university employees have appreciated the increases in salaries that have been approved over the last several years. Thank you for your support. The challenge for our non-state supported services, as Delegate Solomon has pointed out, and my colleague here, is that they must fully cover their own costs from the revenues that they charge. Those revenues come primarily from students because that's who they serve. Examples in my division include mandatory fees charged by our recreation services and by our student center. For students who live in on-campus housing, these include the room rates they pay, and for many of these students, a dining plan as well. Over the last several years, the generous salary increases have required these non-state supported services to increase their charges to students significantly. For housing and dining, for example, on our campus, they incurred a $12.4 million base salary increase for fiscal years 22, 23, and 24. Again, we applaud your efforts to support the salaries of our employees. We too want to reduce the impact of raising rates on our students and their families. So I hope you can consider House Bill 341 as one means to do so. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm Colleen Wright-Riva, Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at the University of Maryland. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today in support of House Bill 341. I've worked at the University of Maryland for about 17 years. 15 of those years, I was the Director of Dining Services, which is one of the largest self-support departments on our campus. As a self-support unit, all expenses and all the money dining provides back to the university for central functions is paid entirely from the revenue generated by our students through dining plan sales and through other revenue within the department. Cost of living adjustments are incredibly important for our employees. Many of them work more than one job just to make ends meet. However, for the self-support unit itself, like dining, housing, and parking, the impact of this important additional dollars means the departments will have to increase their fees to students or reduce the important commitments like facilities renewal or programming to cover those costs. And when we reduce our commitments to our facilities renewal and our capital program or our services, we certainly risk student dissatisfaction. This year, the cost of living adjustment represents about 16% of the total fee request from our students for our housing and dining program. When this cost is added to the other cost pressures like utilities, food, and operating costs, this can represent hundreds of new dollars in fees for our students. This bill recognizes that the additional burden of cost of living adjustments on self-support units and our students. Having state funding for these additional dollars would allow the University of Maryland to keep its commitment to affordability to our students and our families. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share Frostburg State University's comments in favor of enactment of HB 341. My name is Al D'Elia, and I'm serving as acting president of Frostburg State University. On the campus of Frostburg State, we have 131 positions in the auxiliary, grant-funded, and contingent 2 categories that are not supported with state funds. That number is more than 17% of all FSU employees, a little more than 1 in 6 employees. Currently, when the state provides cost of living increases for state-supported positions, increases that we certainly strongly support, these positions I described a few seconds ago are also mandated to receive COLA increases. Though they are not monetarily state-supported positions, the state requires COLA increases be provided with no money made available by the state to meet this mandate. As an example, with a 3% COLA, the cost to FSU to fund the increased cost of these 131 positions will be more than $336,000. May not sound like a lot, but it's 0.5% of all of our salary obligations. And the obligation will increase proportionally every year as increases occur for those salaries for any reason. That $336,411 precisely that I mentioned a second ago is a significant portion of our personnel budget and a budget that needs to be cut elsewhere in order to fund the additional positions salaries. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is why I'm here to voice my institution's support for HB 341. I'm happy to address any questions the committee may have of me. Thank you.
Greetings and good afternoon. My name is Bruce Gerald. I'm president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I'd like to thank Delegate Solomon for her sponsoring of this bill and the committee for hearing our testimony. I would like to echo what President Dennison said about a research university. Our faculty are highly productive in attracting outside funding and other sources of funding. That's how you get to $660 million of outside funding. That's how you get ranked number 11 in the nation in public universities for research, along with the College Park partner. To achieve this, we greatly leverage state dollars, and for every state dollar invested in us, we produce another $13 in non-state funding, 1 to 13. Produces 16,000 jobs and has a $1.2 million impact on the state economy. Leveraging state funds is how we accomplish this. For example, a basic scientist in our university generates 60% of his or her salary from outside sources, i.e. not the state. And in the clinical sciences, our faculty generate 90% of their salary on average from outside sources, meaning the state is 10%. This is a very effective model. It's how you do the first heart transplant in man from a pig donor. It's how you stand up the first COVID vaccine trials, by having programs that are innovative like this. Unfortunately, most of these outside sources do not provide COLA. So imagine the following. You're one of the scientists in the lab working on these grants. You work elbow to elbow with another investigator who is paid entirely on state funds. They get the COLA, you do not. You're entrepreneurial, but you do not. We ask for treatment to remedy this differential treatment. Thank you for your consideration.
For the bill sponsor or the panel? Okay, thank you all for being with us, and thank you for all the work you do in higher education. I think we have one more in-person witness, Katie Maloney. Katie with us? Yeah, two maybe. I think I had everybody except for Katie. See Katie? Katie? Is he you? Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, committee members. I'm Vernon Hurt, Vice President for Student Affairs at Towson University. And I appreciate the opportunity to share in support of House Bill 341. As a university leader who is responsible for many auxiliary units that provide critical needs and supports for TU students, I'm particularly grateful that this legislation has been proposed by Delegate Solomon. As you know, auxiliary units are not supported by state or tuition funding. This means when COLA adjustments are made, we must make necessary adjustments to implement these mandated salary increases. This typically means a combination of increases to student fees and decreases in student programming and support services. Like our sister colleges and universities, Towson University has a deep commitment to accessibility and affordability. While we have no choice but to increase student fees to make the revenue needed to implement COLA adjustments, we always strive to make those increases as minimal as possible. When I think about the units in which I lead, just as an example, for the past 2 fiscal years, it's an impact of just over $500,000. As a result of the mandated increase with no state or tuition support, student fee revenue just does not meet the increased costs. Instead, we're forced to make those operational cuts to departments such as student activities, which provide campus-wide programming to support student engagement and learning outside of the classroom. This includes our leadership development efforts. For campus recreation, a major component of our student health and well-being supports, we have delayed some of our equipment maintenance and replacement. For our Office of Civic Engagement and Social Responsibility, we've had significant cuts to our programming budget and have had to make the decision over the past couple of years to discontinue some of our vacant positions. This area in particular is very critical to us as we had hoped to enhance some of our work. We're a national leader in student voter registration and engagement. And this year we won't be able to enhance those services as we'd like. And so we hope that the committee will continue to move forward in support of this bill. Thank you.
All right, any questions? I don't see any. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day. That concludes the bill hearing. We'll turn to our last bill, House Bill 493. I think Delegate Foley is here. Saw her a minute ago. Somebody want to see if Delegate Foley's in the hallway? I don't want to give her testimony for her, but we'll do it if we have to. Donna, you want to see if Delegate Foley's in the hallway there? Yes, just in the nick of time. The 18 witnesses appreciate you making it right on time because we were about to move along. Welcome.
It was a nature thing, you know, weren't your panels? Yes, Mr. Chair, may I call up my panel? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Linda Foley, and I'm presenting HB 493, State Personnel Collective Bargaining Faculty, Part-Time Faculty, Postdoctoral Associates, and Graduate Assistants. Excuse me, HB 493 extends collective bargaining rights to full-time and part-time faculty, graduate assistants, and postdoctoral associates who work at the University of Maryland system and at Morgan State and St. Mary's College of Maryland. These academic workers are the only significant group of state employees who are prohibited from having a union contract. In 2021, the legislature voted to allow collective bargaining for professors and other academic workers at Maryland's community colleges. There's no reason for faculty and other academic workers at Maryland's four-year public colleges and universities not to enjoy the same rights as their counterparts at community colleges. In fact, some part-time faculty teaching at our community colleges also teach the same courses at our four-year schools. In addition, several of Maryland's private colleges and universities have collective bargaining rights for full-time and part-time faculty, including Goucher College, McDaniel College, the Maryland Institute College of Art, as well as Johns Hopkins. Nationwide, 24 states allow professors at four-year academic institutions to collectively bargain. Those states include Delaware, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and even in Ohio. Now, with respect to graduate assistants and postdoctoral associates, the numbers for graduate assistants who are organized are even more overwhelming. 113, let me say that again, 113 four-year colleges and universities across the country recognize bargaining rights for grad assistants. They are located in most of the 50 states, including in several states south of the Mason-Dixon line. The list includes private as well as public universities, large as well as small schools. Of that group, 76 schools already have collective bargaining agreements in place. These schools include 12 Big Ten schools: Rutgers, Michigan State, University of Michigan, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, Penn State, Iowa, and even Nebraska. By the way, Johns Hopkins is on that list too. Around the country, more than 100,000 graduate assistants have joined the United Auto Workers Union alone, and the UAW is only one of about 5 national unions with graduate assistant members. Now, witnesses for the University of Maryland administration no doubt will tell you how impossible it will be to recognize collective bargaining for its academic workers, how it will destroy the relationship that makes UMD work, how it will affect academic excellence, that there are already procedures in place to address the concerns of faculty and grad assistants, and that it will drive up the costs of higher education at UMD. Don't believe it. In fact, collective bargaining likely will improve the overall atmosphere and quality of education at UMD. I refer you to the favorable written testimony submitted by former Associate Dean Shauna Pearson Merkowitz. She describes in detail how collective bargaining decreases interracial and gender inequality and improves shared governance, also reduces core expenses, and helps student completion rates. And she has the empirical data and the personal experience to back that up. You know, UMD promotes itself as an institution that is fearless in its approach to education. So why is the university administration so fearful of giving its academic employees a real voice at work? Who knows? But what I do know is that they are so afraid of collective bargaining that they apparently have hired a union avoidance lawyer in a management rights firm to fight their academic workers. I believe that lawyer is on the list to testify today. If collective bargaining can work at Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, Harvard, Yale, the University of Kentucky, and Johns Hopkins, just to name a few, it can and should work at the University of Maryland. You're going to hear from some of the workers here today, and they're going to tell you about the efforts to organize these groups of professors and students. Therefore, I urge that you give a favorable report to HB 493. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah, if the workers, if you want to go first, of course. Identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Ivy Lyons. I am a teaching assistant and one of the many graduate workers who calls the University of Maryland College Park my home. It is a place where I am currently a third-year PhD student and where me and my colleagues have been hard at work getting more than 2,000 signatures on cards. This is a card campaign that we have been working on for months into years, and a process that you've certainly heard about before. You can take a look at the cards. This is just 1,700 of more than 2,000 cards that we have available. We have been working hard because we understand how difficult it is to be a teaching assistant, to be in the circumstances that we are at the University of Maryland. In my personal experience and in my conversations with friends and colleagues who enjoy the work that they do and care enough about the institution to want to work collaboratively toward getting to a better economic and a better job security, a better state with the university system, it is apparent to us. I'm a budding instructor. I would hope to be an instructor one of these days. And I know just as well as everyone else does that we are workers. We are clearly encouraged by the work that you all are doing. And we are encouraged by the fact that you have the opportunity to pass, support, and report favorably HB 0493. You can give graduate workers, faculty, and staff in Maryland State higher education the more than 2,000 who have already signed cards and say that this is an active work, that this is something we need to do. You can give the state employed graduate workers, faculty employees, you can give our groups the at four-year institutions and community colleges the resources they need. You can democratize our workplaces in the way that they are expected, and of course, put us on the level with the peer institutions that, of course, you've heard so much about from Delegate Foley.
Thank you. Congratulations on all your hard work.
My name is Jessica Berstrom, and I'm a fourth-year PhD student at UMBC. I am also a 43-year-old physically disabled mother of two. I matriculated at UMBC with over 16 years experience teaching thousands of students and even training other teachers. My first graduate assistantship at UMBC entailed supporting multiple professors' teaching work and sharing my own strategies and assignments honed over a decade teaching college writing with the entire department so they could utilize them with their own students going forward. My second graduate assistantship entails working as a scholarly book reviews editor, typically a position reserved for a college professor. But as an older professional, I am not unusual at UMBC, a minority serving institution. Most of our graduate students are like me, many of them supporting family and pursuing an additional degree for career advancement or a career change. I also speak for them today because I am the vice president of the UMBC Graduate Student Association. I am an asset to the University System of Maryland. Without graduate assistants like me, the university could not function. But I can only afford to eschew outside employment and attend UMBC full-time because my spouse has a good, stable, flexible job with generous benefits. I could never have afforded or succeeded in this way otherwise. I had to leave my previous graduate program because I was a single parent working 5 jobs and ran out of time. So I know how precarious graduate assistants' lives are. Most graduate students do not have the privilege I do. Graduate students need recourse when they are mistreated, exploited, or just need more support to complete their degree. This is especially true for first-generation students or those from underrepresented groups. It's not always about more money, and it's not the same at every school. We deserve your trust that we can be given access to this right, like others who support the good work of this state. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and delegates. I'm Tom Abrams. I'm a professor in the School of Medicine at the University of Maryland. I'm also a senator on UMB Faculty Senate, and I'm vice chair of the Council of University System Faculty, which represents the faculty across the system. CUSIF, as it's called, strongly supports HB 493. So today I'm here to support this bill. I'd like to address two issues. First, it's often suggested that unions would be redundant with the existing shared governance mechanism. This argument ignores the reality that the student and faculty shared governance bodies are strictly advisory and they have no negotiating roles. These bodies do not address financial issues, compensation, or benefits. Thus, unions would not be redundant. An important additional argument for unions is that they could intercede in instances of harassment or bullying. Faculty currently do not have very effective mechanisms to address bullying or intimidation, which often involve administrators. Bullying and abuse are rare events, but when they do occur, it can be psychologically traumatic, and they can dramatically undermine productivity, both for the individual who is targeted and for the institution. In some examples, grant funding has actually been suspended without due process as a means of intimidation. Women and underrepresented minorities are disproportionately targeted. Recently, there has been widespread harassment of foreign-born researchers, in particular Chinese-born postdocs and faculty. Asian-born researchers are a major part of our highly skilled Maryland workforce in biomedical research and engineering. Harassed faculty leave the university and often they leave the state of Maryland. So in summary, this type of mistreatment of university researchers has a large economic toll on our state. A union would provide an independent advocate for addressing this type of grievance. Thank you for support of this important bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Donna Edwards. I'm president of the Maryland State and DC AFL-CIO. I want to thank Delegate Foley. She really laid out the bill explicitly and gave information. As you can see, this is what the workers want at the university. This is not being driven by a union or any special interest. This is being driven by faculty and grad students. They are asking you to give them the right to decide democratically for themselves to have collective bargaining. You have to do the enabling law. In the United States, there are 34 states that have state law protecting in some form or another academic professional for collective bargaining. This is going to come in one way or another. Just recently, the Big Ten and the SEC just got together in a joint advisory group because they have significant problems in the athletic departments. And one of the big topics is collective bargaining with student athletes. That's coming, it's coming here. I listened to the testimony on the bill before this, and I heard that the researchers, the faculty and grad students who are doing research at some of our colleges are bringing in 90% of additional money. They are working to bring in money to the university that is trying to deny them an equal right with, as you heard, hundreds of other universities around this state, around this country. I urge you, please, please give a favorable report to HB 493. Thank you.
Mr.
your work.
We have a few more people too.
We're going to hear from this panel and then we'll bring up the next panel. Any questions for this panel or the bill sponsor? Okay, so the four of you can move out. The sponsor is welcome to stay if you'd like, or you can move out. We have Ann McAleer, Pia Morrison. I think that's everyone I had. Oh no, Ryan Baker. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ray Baker.
Ray Baker.
Ray Baker.
Ann McAleer, Pia Morrison, and Ray Baker. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Ray Baker. I have the joint fortune of serving with AFT Maryland and also as an adjunct professor at Towson University. Contingent faculty need collective bargaining. Contingent faculty need collective bargaining primarily because so many of us work at the precipice of education and at a time where higher education in state of Maryland is necessary to train and produce the best workers. Also, by enlightening us and providing an intelligent society, we want the opportunity as contingent faculty to be able to create certainty around our work conditions. Far too many of us have to work the same jobs as we've heard earlier at our four-year state institutions, at also community colleges, putting together 6 and 7 classes at times to make ends meet. Collective bargaining, in addition to increase and betterment of wages, would allow us certainty in our work experience and our work environment, which would make us better professors for our students. We urge favorable reporting on this bill and then provide collective bargaining to our full-time faculty, our graduate assistants, and particularly our contingent faculty who are workers educating Marylanders of tomorrow, living at the precipice of today.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members of the committee. You're a hard act to follow, brother. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the adjunct faculty too. The adjunct faculty, as you've heard, there's a group of faculty in the University of Maryland. They have they enjoy as much job stability and employee benefits as Uber drivers. They can earn less than the barista who serves coffee in the Starbucks for teaching a full-time load of courses. These faculty, adjunct faculty, are 52% of the faculty teaching in higher education in our nation today, and they can teach anywhere between 40 and 50% of the students or the courses in a semester in any institution. As we heard, they piece together classes all over the place. They've been known as peace workers of academia. And there's the students right now, when we're sitting here, there's thousands of students in the University of Maryland taking courses from these faculty, not knowing the difference between their full-time faculty and their faculty with substandard working conditions, which are their adjunct faculty, not knowing whether that faculty member will come back be invited, as they say, back next semester to teach another class. And these are often very beloved faculty and teachers who connect very closely with the students. So for the last 21 years, I've worked organizing adjunct faculty into unions in private and public institutions in our area. And I've seen that collective bargaining can bring improvements that do not just happen without it. Adjuncts from Georgetown to Montgomery College have improved with SEIU Local 500, have improved compensation, gained access to office space and resources, a printer that works, negotiated job stability, and support for professional development through unionization. And they have done so without bankrupting or shuttering institutions. In fact, the adjunct faculty at Montgomery College have had collective bargaining for over 10 years, along with their full-time colleagues and staff. Yet the tuition at Montgomery College is on par with that of neighboring Howard Community College and Anne Arundel Community College. So I urge you very strongly to support HB 493. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Barnes and members of the House Appropriation Committee. As the president of SEIU Local 500, a union of over 20,000 workers that represent faculty and staff at various universities and colleges throughout the DMV, I have seen firsthand how collective bargaining changes the workforce for the better. Over the last several years, new bargaining units have developed at some of our most prestigious institutions of higher learning in the region. The issues faced by faculty and graduate student employees are echoed from school to school, from private to public institutions, from large Research One universities to community colleges. The issues we see locally in academic workforces are also broadly systemic in our nation. Too often, the idea of running universities like a business has resulted in squeezing faculty and graduate student employees, requiring these student-facing academic workers to do more with less. They face stagnant compensation, higher workloads, less stability leading to low morale, and high employee turnover. Dissent and dissatisfaction are met with hostility and hesitancy rather than self-reflection on the part of the university administrations. And yet, once workers have unionized and negotiated contracts, morale greatly improves. This in turn improves the climate of the campus in which students are learning. When faculty and grad student employees gain a voice as stakeholders in their own working conditions, education is enhanced. collective bargaining rights, union jobs with living wages, and making Maryland one of the best places to work and learn in this nation has been a priority of many of you for a very, very long time. However, year after year, public sector workers in this state have tried to come before this body piecemeal to be granted the right to collectively bargain. Our Governor Wes Moore has laid out a bold agenda this session to ensure that no Marylander gets left behind. I ask that you vote favorably for House Bill 493. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for this panel? Well, you're rough.
Sure.
Sir.
I had a question for Mr. Baker. Do you have an understanding of, I mean, we learned earlier that faculty and grads have the right to unionize in other states and other universities that are very reputable. Do you have any understanding of whether that right in other states has caused any other issues or harmed those states that have permitted that to happen?
Well, I appreciate the question, Delegate Ruff, and I would like to refer to my colleague here who pointed out how at Montgomery College, we have the adjunct and full-time faculty there who have had collective bargaining. We have not seen any adverse effects regarding the way that the college has administered its education, nor in the fact that the college is going about its business to deliver its services to students, nor raising tuition in ways that are incompatible with, as my colleague alluded to initially, Anne Arundel and Howard, which are adjoining colleges. So there's nothing in the evidence that we have before us that suggests we should have that concern.
Okay, and what about other states and other universities outside of the state of Maryland?
Well, I would prefer to draw our attention to the state of Maryland. No disrespect, Delegate Ruff, but that's where we are. And that's where our employers and our workers would be. And I think that's what's important for this body to consider, the outcomes and effects of Maryland. And so while we have heard of the litany of Big Ten and SEC schools boo to the SEC, this is Big Ten country, but it's weird to say this is really ACC territory. But nonetheless.
You know that's right.
Nonetheless, I think it's important that we recognize that our peer institutions are moving in this direction. And Maryland is a leader in the United States. And for us not to be a leader in this instance is very, quite honestly, inconsistent with who we are as a state. And so while we do want to acknowledge what those other states are doing and whatever outcomes they've had, I think our best examples are to look local.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being with us. Thanks for your advocacy.
Thank you.
We will turn to the opposition. Signed up unfavorably. I'm going to call you in groups of 3 or 4. So come on up. Whoever gets to the table first can just start your testimony. Allison Wren, David Wanby, David Dalder, and Dean Roger Ward. Thank you. First.
Let me set my timer. So
We have a beeper here. We'll let you know.
Oh,
Do your
okay.
thing. Yep.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Allison Wren. Thank you, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and delegates. I would like to touch briefly on the effectiveness of shared governance and how the data provided by the University System of Maryland's Council on System Faculty, or CUSIF, demonstrates the efficacy of shared governance. This allows us to come together and solve issues for the good of our students, all without collective bargaining. Negative perceptions about shared governance that have been shared are not borne out in the recent annual survey conducted by CUSIF. There was a 2-part survey. The second part was a broad survey that tried to reach beyond the leaders of shared governance at each of our universities. The general survey had nearly 1,400 participants. The essential question posed by some faculty seems to be whether or not faculty are satisfied with shared governance on their campus. Here are a few examples from the survey, which seems to bear out that they are. When asked if they were involved in shared governance on their campus, about half the respondents said yes. On the question of whether or not their shared governance representatives have an impact on campus policies that matter, which gets to the heart of the efficacy of shared governance, fewer than a quarter said no. When asked if they were happy with their input into academic policies on their campus, nearly half said yes, while only 30% said no. Finally, when asked whether or not their campus president supports and advocates for shared governance, only 10% said no. These are not misleading statements. They come directly from a survey created by CUSIF. What about graduate students? We firmly believe they are students, not workers. The duties they perform are directly related to their status as student. My colleagues today will share some of the pieces here. So as they do that, we would like to continue to work together in a respectful manner to ensure the best outcomes for our students. We're concerned that with faculty collective bargaining, the role of shared governance will be greatly diminished and a unique strength of public higher education in Maryland will be lost. Thank you.
Hello, I'm David Dowalder. I am interim provost at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Through a 40-year career in higher education, I've spent 18 years in collective bargaining environments and 22 years in non-union environments. I've been a member of 2 faculty bargaining units, first at Central Michigan University and then at California State University, Los Angeles. And I've served as an associate dean, acting dean, and provost at 2 campuses in the California State University system, in the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, and now in the University System of Maryland. And I do not recommend collective bargaining for state universities nor university systems, particularly the USM, and here's why. Number one, shared governance does work well in the USM. Policy documents specify USM parameters. Institutions develop through local shared governance institutional policies within USM parameters. Unlike other systems in my experience, USM includes governance groups connected with all key constituent groups, including full-time faculty, adjunct faculty, administrative staff, undergraduate students, and graduate students. These groups are active participants in development and revision of policies, strategic planning, and accreditation self-study processes. The University System of Maryland allows for institutional differences. Each USM institution has its own mission, purpose, and role, and the governance system recognizes and supports those differences. 4, key issues addressed through collective bargaining are already addressed through shared governance in a collaborative and respectful manner. And number 5, the current system emphasizes local decision-making, which allows each institution to deliver on its goals in a manner that fits best the solution. Shared governance throughout the USM appears strong, respectful, and effective. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Roger Ward, Provost and Executive Vice President at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I'm the former Dean of the Graduate School at the same institution. In June 2012, the University System of Maryland adopted Meet and Confer guidelines to improve the opportunities for graduate assistants and adjunct faculty to voice their concerns and participate in decision-making that affects them. Since that time, UMB has been working very effectively with our GAs and our faculty members in a transparent, collaborative, collegial manner on a myriad of issues, including stipend increases, health insurance, leave time, housing, parking, transportation, and work and academic life balance. Since 2012, we have established standing meetings with our graduate assistants and meet with them as often as they like to work through any issues that may come up. The president leads these meetings. I also attend, as does our CFO and the Dean of the Graduate School. Our graduate assistants have direct and unencumbered access to UMB's leadership through our Meet and Confer process. It has served us extremely well for the past 12 years. I worry that superimposing a collective bargaining process on a well-functioning Meet and Confer process will erode the mutual trust, respect, and strong connection we have established with our GAs over the past 12 years. Likewise, we have invested a tremendous amount of time and effort strengthening our relationship with the faculty and enhancing shared governance at UMB. This effort goes back to 2010, when then President Perman convened a shared governance summit involving faculty, staff, and students. Here too, I worry that unionization will become and will negatively impact a highly effective and productive shared governance model. A one-size-fits-all approach will negatively impact the effectiveness of shared governance at UMB. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee for your attention. I'm David Ownby, Associate Dean of Graduate Studies and for 16 years, Professor of Chemistry at Towson University. You have the Towson University written testimony, so I'm going to limit my remarks. TU is currently expanding its research and graduate student capacity. However, the majority of our graduate assistants will be and will continue to be master's students that are only with us for about 2 years. Even though they're with us for a short amount of time, it is important that faculty and student develop a professional mentoring relationship that would be limited by a more rigid employee-employer situation that unionization would impose, building on the trust and support of that mentor-mentee relationship. We value graduate students as important members of the university community, and through shared governance structures in place, they are included as members of college and university level committees, including those addressing university budget, curriculum, and student appeals. The Graduate Student Association president is an ex officio member of the Academic Senate and was a member of the recent Presidential Search Committee. I meet weekly and sometimes daily with the leadership of the Graduate Student Association. We have a great working relationship. In addition to graduate student participation and shared governance, TU utilizes the meet and confer process to ensure their voices is heard by university leadership, including Provost, VP of Administration and Finance, Chief Human Resource Officer, VP for Student Affairs, as well as the Dean of Graduate Studies and myself. As a result of our recent concerns, stipends of all assistantships have been steadily increased at Towson, with increases of 50% since spring 2022 for the majority of our master's level assistants and an increase of 23% for doctoral teaching and research assistants. TU awarded both state COLAs in July and November 2022 that were funded by the state, only for faculty and staff to graduate assistants as well. Between these increases in stipend levels, adding additional assistantship positions, and higher tuition waiver costs, TU has increased its yearly investment in our graduate assistants by over $2 million since spring of 2018.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Delegate McCaskill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. And just for the record, and I missed it and I do apologize. Can you two at the end, yes, state your name? I feel like I'm missing something. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Allison Wren, Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the University System of Maryland.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I'm David Dowalder.
Okay.
I am interim provost at UMBC.
Okay, perfect. All right, then, Mr. Chair, I scratched what my question was going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess for anyone on the panel, I know that you all have talked about this meet and confer and shared governance, but collective bargaining is, legally binding shared governance that's essentially codified into law. So what would be the problem in your view with enshrining these agreements into law?
I can start, and since David has greater experience in these kinds of environments, I might ask him to chime in. When you have a bargaining unit, you have to be more cautious, as Roger alluded to, with the shared governance body, so that you don't tread on collective bargaining rights. And so anything related to work conditions will need to be part of conversations with bargaining units. And it's the bargaining units that define the work conditions, not the shared governance body. And so the shared governance body tends to have little to no input on those matters.
Well, I've seen examples of, for instance, faculty pay scales that ignored market forces, which really made it very difficult for the universities in that system to vie for the very best faculty candidates. I've seen situations where faculty governance leaders who also served as local bargaining unit leaders, so they kind of merged together in their purposes, refused to create and implement a collective bargaining agreement required post-tenure review process. But they just absolutely refused working through the governance system to actually create such a process. And frankly, I've seen bargaining unit leaders who work hard to protect documented mediocrity and even to protect faculty colleagues who had violated the rights of students, faculty, and staff. So some of those things really result in these situations. Not all the time, but sometimes they do.
Okay, and just one last follow-up. You guys have relied a lot on the information from the American Association for University Professors and for the Council of University System Faculty. But isn't it true that both of those organizations support this type of bill?
As a faculty member.
Go ahead, David. Thank you.
As a faculty member,
is that a yes?
Not all faculty members agree with what CUSIP says.
But I'm talking about the organizations as a whole. They have expressed
CUSIP may, but not all faculty members agree.
Wait a second. I'm just asking a very simple yes or no question. These organizations support this bill, correct?
They support collective bargaining.
These organizations would support collective bargaining.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Understood. Delegate McComas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a quick question, and basically we're dealing with state funds, right? Okay, so my question is, we're fiduciaries for the public when it comes to, you know, what happens with the funds. So my feeling is by introducing a union, is that kind of then complicating the situation as far as the fiduciary duty and getting the best product that you want from the folks that are doing the teaching and your other employees? Because in other words, you're interjecting a different thing into the mix. In other words, it's not just an issue of supply and demand or the market or whatever, or the talent. Because you said something about mediocrity, and I think where I'm coming from is you hear all these kind of scary stories about you can't fire a teacher in New York City, and they sit in this room and they collect the salary and get the pension and everything. Okay.
Again, I've seen multiple situations where that does happen. I mean, on the other hand, collective bargaining agreements give you rules to follow, but the rules then in many cases become very restrictive. And even some very positive things you want to do for faculty and for the entire institution, you're prevented from doing simply because you have to follow the provisions of that collective bargaining agreement. It goes both ways, yeah.
And I would also add, we talk about the faculty as if they're a monolithic group. You have research faculty, you have clinical faculty, you have teaching faculty, and then on our campus as a research institution, the interests of all these faculty groups vary. And the idea that one collective bargaining unit could represent appropriately the interests of all these groups, I think is misunderstood. And when I say that our faculty and our students, our GAs have unencumbered access to our leadership, that access allows them the opportunity to advocate on their own behalf, and they are more than capable and able to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And to the gentleman from Towson, I'm trying to remember if I can correctly, it's been a while since I was in college, but when I played sports at Towson University, we had a graduate assistant, and I believe he was paid. I believe he was allowed to, well, he took classes on a scholarship. He was having, I think, now I want you to tell me if this is right or wrong. He was able to get all the benefits of basically being like an intern to the coaches. I believe he had a stipend when we traveled, and he traveled with us. I'm just trying to understand why somebody who is a graduate, maybe an assistant coach or whatnot. Now, I don't know about all the other positions that you mentioned, sir, but why they would want to change what seemed to be working in that case where he received all these benefits as the graduate assistant? Or how would this hurt or help something like that?
So thank you for bringing up the athletic department, because we're actually actively working with the athletic department to help them build additional GA positions into their budget to hire and to help the education of students in marketing, in communications, in math fields where they need the analytics, and they need that extra support in the athletics department. And by using our graduate students, the students get opportunities for real world experience at the same time while they are on an assistantship, which provides a stipend and tuition waiver.
So then, okay, they did get all those things. It's hard to remember.
Yes.
Then, and would this bill passing, you think, limit the amount of people you could have in those positions or no?
I think it absolutely would.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to put my head and create this. If you talk about collective bargaining, does that mean that employees will be on the same playing field? In other words, if you hire a faculty person at 100,000 and another guy at 120,000, another one 150,000, how does that bring collective bargaining? How do you negotiate where you're at?
That would depend on the details in the collective bargaining agreement. So the agreement would set the parameters within which you would have the freedom to negotiate a beginning salary. It could be very tight. I mean,
I just see where this
when I was initially hired in the California State University system as a faculty member, there was a faculty salary scale. And I was coming in as, I was fortunate to come in as an associate professor, so that allowed me to come a little bit higher on the scale, but still it was defined by my qualifications coming in. Other collective bargaining agreements may have a broader set of definitions. What would concern me in the university system of Maryland are the variety of schools, variety of institutions that are within the state serving different purposes. They all have their place, but they all need the ability to be able to work within those constraints, to be able to address the issues of those specific institutions.
Thank you. I just see we're splattering an egg and it's going to be a mess.
Oh, yes, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to this panel for your testimony. I wanted to make sure, just a couple clarifying questions so that I understand your testimony correctly. The gentleman here, you mentioned your actually in one of your responses that collective bargaining is restrictive because it sets rules that must be followed. Aren't those rules agreed upon by both parties to include at the negotiating table? So the workers and management, is that so?
That is correct. Yes, between the two negotiating bodies.
So how is it restrictive if you are at the negotiating table and deciding on all the rules to be followed?
It doesn't really define who's going to be at the negotiating table, and that is done by, the system. And the system would, for the system side, would have to decide on who's going to be there for them, the union on their side, and then it would be the negotiations. And depending upon the flexibility that the institutions and the collective bargaining unit would be willing to agree to.
But
So
both parties have to agree to the collective bargaining agreement.
Through the collective bargaining agreement, yes.
Right, so both parts, so it's not something that is imposed as your colleague had mentioned on the panel. It's not something that's imposed. Both parties agree to the collective bargaining agreement and then it's ratified. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure I understand your testimony correctly. And then the gentleman seated next to you mentioned that students have unencumbered access to university leadership so they can advocate for themselves and they're perfectly capable to do so. Would you also agree that students should be unencumbered to advocate for collective bargaining rights and that they are perfectly capable to advocate for themselves and know what's in their best interest to be able to do so? Would you agree with that?
I would agree that students on a campus, should they want to advocate for unionization, should be able to do so. You would recall that I mentioned in my statement a one-size-fits-all approach. That is what I'm worried about. My colleague here just talked about the distinctiveness about our respective institutions. And within those institutions, the differences across disciplines. And so trying to, again, get a collective bargaining unit that would adequately address the needs of the very diverse groups of faculty and students that we have on our campus, I think in the end, actually disadvantages any number of faculty, staff, and students on our campus.
Sure, and I appreciate that response. So you would agree that students, part-time faculty, graduate assistants should also be unencumbered in their efforts to seek collective bargaining agreements, something that they believe, or at least a majority or some, believe is in their best interest. Do you believe that they should be unencumbered in those efforts?
As someone who came up as a student affairs professional, I will always support students, and in particular, seeking to advocate for themselves. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I can't remember who it was, basically made a statement that they were afraid that a union would help support, I remember the word unproductive sort of faculty. You didn't really mean to say that, right? I mean, most evidence is that unions actually, by providing a healthier and happier workforce, actually lead to more productivity. So a chance to retract that if that's what you really meant. Or if we can all agree that a union does lead to a happier, more productive faculty.
No, I have seen situations where unions have supported individuals through
But you wouldn't take an anecdotal situation and aggregate it to an entire workforce, would you?
It would not be aggregated to the entire workforce. I said I've seen situations, and every collective bargaining agreement that I worked in, I've seen those kinds of situations. And they are essentially supporting, they're essentially defending the member of the collective bargaining unit.
Well, I'm glad you
clarified
for us and let us know exactly where you are. Any other questions for this panel? Delegate Smith. Okay, thank you all for being with us. Thank you. We have more unfavorable Stephen Roth, Rondell Allen, and Guy Elaine Amuso.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. I'm Stephen Roth, Dean of the Graduate School at the University of Maryland, College Park. I first want to acknowledge the testimony that the students have shared today. It takes courage, and I applaud their courage in advocating on their behalf. I stepped into my role because I want to improve the student experience, and I know we can do better. I do not believe, however, that collective bargaining is the best approach to resolving the issues that they've raised. Graduate assistants are students receiving educational support, not employees. They are not hired under a typical employment process, but are provided an assistantship as a way to financially support their education and professional goals. Contrary to what you've heard, the meet and confer process is working effectively. Our stipends are in the top ranks of our publicly funded peers. Our graduate assistants receive the same healthcare benefits as our faculty and staff. And we have improved and continue to improve grievance, mentoring, mental health, parental accommodation, and other policies and resources. We often hear the question, what are you afraid of with collective bargaining? Based on our experience with peers around the country, we worry that students' relationships with their faculty will become more about employment than about mentorship. That our ability to be nimble and work directly with students on policy improvements will instead be limited to renegotiating lengthy, multi-year agreements with unions. And that programs will move more and more to hiring full-time staff rather than part-time graduate assistants, limiting important educational opportunities for students. For these reasons, we seek an unfavorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Dr. Guy Amusu, and I'm the Acting Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Bowie State University. I have been at Bowie State for close to 10 years, serving for 8 years as Associate Provost and Associate Provost for Academic Affairs, taking my current role. Before joining Bowie State University, I was a program officer at the National Science Foundation, and prior to that, I was a faculty at Humboldt State University, that is part of the California State University system. And I'm quite familiar with the collective bargaining agreement in California. We State University take great pride in the positive relationship we've built between the administration and faculty by working collaboratively to share governance on important issues. For example, President Bro, who's the president of Bowie State University, and the provost meet monthly with the faculty senate to provide university updates and respond to questions. Together, we made progress in addressing faculty welfare by increasing faculty salary at promotion from assistant to associate professor and from associate professor to full professor. During the pandemic, we have paid faculty to build up our teaching infrastructure online. To assist faculty with scholarship initiative, Bowie State provides grant writers to support our faculty and are able to capture 35% of all indirect costs on grants and contract and reinvest those funds to support the research infrastructure. 11% is allocated to principal investigators, and the rest to chairs, deans, and a research fund. Bowie State has streamlined the tenure and promotion process. The institution, as an institution that is working to strengthen the research infrastructure with the aspiration of becoming an R2 designated school, we are committed to attracting and maintaining the best faculty with a very positive competitive salary. For this reason, I urge the committee to vote in favorable to House Bill 493.
Good afternoon, Chairman Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriation Committee. My name is Dr. Ronnie Allen. I have the privilege of serving as the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And thank you for giving me a little bit of your time to be able to share what shared governance looks like on our campus. As an administrative team, we have been intentional about engaging our faculty, staff, and students around issues that pertain to them. As we believe that the shared governance process actually bodes well for transparency and accountability. So currently we have 8 opportunities for our faculty to engage the senior administrative team through monthly meetings. And so some of those meetings include faculty assembly, our Senate meeting, the Chair's Council, the Dean's Council, and also the Provost meeting with the faculty. We also meet monthly with our graduate students. And so that first meeting occurs with myself and the Dean of the School and Graduate Studies. And then also there's a meeting with myself and the president. And so that gives us an opportunity for us to be able to address any concerns that our graduate students may have. We also have monthly meetings for our undergraduate students through our town hall meetings. And again, we're able to address any concerns that they may have in real time. So some of the benefits that we believe that have occurred through this shared governance process would include us being able to obtain feedback from our campus community on some of our strategic initiatives. For example, our strategic plan, our regional accreditation document, and also our student success plan, which we plan to implement this semester. Also, as a sign that we're actually listening to our faculty, we have recently been providing them with professional development funds to help them maintain competence in their area of expertise, leadership training because we believe in succession planning, and also we just recently increased the salary for our adjunct pay. So in conclusion, we believe that the shared governance process is actually working on our campus as it bodes well for a collaborative decision-making, transparency, and inclusion, and we believe would obviate the need for collective bargaining.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for this panel? David Edelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm guessing you all heard the testimony of the bill sponsor stating the number of schools that have implemented collective bargaining for graduate students. A lot of members on this panel and the prior panel have talked about what could potentially happen if this were implemented. I'm wondering if any of you have any evidence of this, any of the negative consequences actually happening at any of the institutions that have implemented collective bargaining for graduate students.
For somebody who was a faculty in the California State University system, I have witnessed firsthand how it was impacting our ability my ability as a faculty to work and negotiate with my students. As my colleague mentioned earlier, the ability to mentor students was kind of dissipating, more to give privilege to, well, these are my rights, I need to be paid, instead of working with the faculty. So I think that's an important piece as a graduate students, that we're entrusted as faculty at those institutions to support our students. And we have shared examples where this is currently happening. So I'm concerned about, the benefit of really working directly with students, supporting them, mentoring them, instead of just a transactional relationship between faculty and grad students.
Okay, but do you have anything other than, examples here and there of interactions that you have had? I'm talking about like actual aggregate evidence of the climate changing for the worse as a result of these policies.
Well, I cannot point you to a study, but I think there's enough evidence talking across systems that this did not, in my view, enable, as my colleague shared, as I have experienced as a faculty and other colleagues, did not help the atmosphere between grad students and faculty.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all for being with us. I think we have an online witness, which Julie's already hopefully pulling up. Thanks all for your service to the system. Mark? Okay, Mark, can you turn your video on? We're ready for you. You're gonna have 2 minutes, and we're gonna give you another few seconds here to get your video on and turn your audio on and join us. One virtual witness, Mark, should be there we go.
I'm sorry for that. Thank you, Chairman. My name is Mark Swerdlin. I'm here on behalf of Morgan State University, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the concerns from Morgan State. I'd like to just briefly, I know the committee has heard a lot already, but I'd like to just briefly highlight some concerns that Morgan State has regarding this bill and its potential disruption to the collaborative decision-making process already in place, and the potential negative impact on institutional sustainability and the shift of focus from excellence in teaching, intensive research, and effective public service and community engagement to union interest. Morgan State, like many of the institutions who have, I believe, presented a testimony here and I think in prior years on a similar bill before the committee, utilizes a university council as its methodology of shared governance. And from Morgan's perspective, this has been working quite well. The process with the University Council involves administration, faculty, professional administrative staff, student body, and the ongoing operations of the university. Faculty members come from each of our academic colleges and schools at the university to participate. And for those colleges and schools with graduate programs, there are representatives of the graduate faculty that also participate. The council reviews proposed policies, advises Morgan State's president concerning those policies, provides Morgan State's president an insight into the university-wide impact that these proposed policies might have. And the University Council also, on its own initiative, may make recommendations to the president for the president's consideration or the Board of Regents of Morgan State for any matter that has university-wide significance and impact. From our perspective, the University Council serves a valued role in providing all members of the university's committee a part in the shared governance. We are concerned that collective bargaining could lead to slower progress and hindered implementation of initiatives which effectively address the concerns of multiple stakeholders that we believe is already being accomplished by the University Council.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness, Delegate McCaskill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mark Swirling. I just want to, for the record, I need to confirm, does your firm work for UMD?
For I'm sorry.
Does your firm?
Representing Morgan, I think, Delegate.
I'm representing Morgan State University.
Thank you, but I just have an additional question just to clarify my mindset. You're representing as a lawyer, or what capacity are you representing Morgan?
Yes, thank you. I am outside counsel to Morgan State. I'm involved in labor relations and collective bargaining on behalf of the university.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for this witness? Okay, sir. Thanks for holding on and being with us today. Committee, that concludes our bill hearings. We're adjourned.